Welcome to BUB'S Comics and the No Faces Comic Chat. Welcome, one and all in one, and everyone we forgot and left out. Sorry we're late tonight, but DS and Metarog are running late. Let's see if we can get them in here anyway. Here's our good friend DS Comics. Welcome.
What's up? Good to be here. I love the topic.
All right. Let's see if you can stick around for at least 22 minutes.
I'll do my best. With
us, as always, the man who needs no introduction. That's why I didn't bother to think of one. Metarog.
Wow. Well, that's a great non-introduction. Thank you very much. Greetings, everyone. Great to be here. Yeah, this is an interesting topic. We can maybe discuss why there is a genre called war comics.
Okay, duly noted. Metarog does not like the non-specific nature of our topic tonight. In case you guys didn't know, I do speak Rogerese. So, that's all right. All good. We got Las Cruces in the house. Unruly Simeon. Mr. Gretzky 9966 Hut. Metarog's here, of course. We're so glad he can make it. Jambo Comics saying, nice LB Cole. I'm sure. Looks like we got some Heath. So he's talking about me in this. Thank you.
Yeah, he's talking about the Captain Flight you have on the
yes.
Screen. Yeah,
we'll take it. Now, of course, let's see. Metarog is spreading false fake news. Collecting Chaos is in the house. What? See a few of your X comics in here soon. Ooh. Oh, did you get one of them there AOKers?
No. I bought some Atlas comics off of him.
Oh, right. Yes, that's right. To help finish off your collection. We got Area 51. Mike, I tell you, he's been doing a lot in this channel lately. I haven't had. Hey, look at this. We got Rob Boswell saying, did they say the Big Boob Show? What a bum. All right, I got to get down to that one.
Depends how you look at it.
I know. I'm having a hard time here. Collecting Chaos saying, what's going on? From Heroes to Icons in the house as well. Thank you. James Gallegos is here, or Gallegos as I hear it from time to time. Pretty sure one of us is right and the rest of us is wrong. Here we go. Rob Boswell. Did they say the Big Boob Show? Uh-oh. Let's see. Well, it's first of the night. He gets a full trot, doesn't he? There you go.
Trot.
And for the early extra that he put in there, we're going to give him Katie Bar the Door. Good grief. That's a lot of shaking and a shimmying going on here tonight. Thank you, Rob. Good to see you. I miss you, man. I really miss your daily. Rob was really good at putting up those videos where he goes through all the mystery boxes he shouldn't have bought, and I miss those. They were good. So I think he's busy working. Captain Comics is in the house. I don't know this guy. Oh, that's that Billiam fella. Comic Mag Musings. With any luck, Jackson Roy Kirk will come in. I think he's the yin to the other yang, and they kind of balance each other out with saltiness. So good, good to have you all. Appreciate you, Roger. Just go ahead and yak that bone up, and we'll get rolling.
That wasn't me.
That wasn't you.
No.
Oh my gosh, DS, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm right. I got my secret tonic here, so
Yeah, very secret indeed. Yep. All right, good to have you. Glad you could all make it. We're going to be in a bit of a rush to get through some parts of the topic tonight because one of us is double booked and found it upon themselves to entertain some other channel with their wiles and knowledge, while the rest of us just float around hoping to get a good topic in. And so we want to just give us a real quick explanation as to where you plan to be the rest of the night there, Metarog.
I plan to be right here on the No Faces Chat.
Good man. All right. Go ahead, you bum and a half. We got DS Comics is going to be leaving us.
I've been invited on CBSI Tales from the Flip Side, which starts at 9 or 9:30, but I've been invited and told to come on at 9. I don't know if that's the setup or whatever run buff they want to talk to me about, but it's a good show. It's usually I catch the second half of that show because I do this one and then I eat dinner or whatever, and then I watch that. It's a cool show. It's on I think it's its own channel, CBSI Tales from the Flip Side. So I don't know exactly what we're talking about, but I've talked to them over the last year or so about going on there. So it's always on Monday night. So that's it. It's either go on there and leave early or not go on there ever. So pulled the trigger this week, and that's what's happening tonight. So.
Well, we're glad that we have you while we have you, and we'll try not to spoil you. So save some of your brain power for the coming streams, and that way, they might even invite you back on again sometime.
Well, Bo, I have no shortage of brain power to go around, so I should be all right.
Wow, look at that. He said it with such confidence.
How about that?
Wow. No, I'm not doubting you. I tell you.
I wouldn't have that.
Every time one of you guys goes on another show, I feel like I've done my part in exposing you to the community. Roger, do you feel like you're exposed?
Boy, do I.
That's good stuff. All right, guys. Well, I want to start off with this fine gentleman here. Even though he'll be leaving us shortly, I want to see what he's got to show us. As Roger said, we can talk about anything, aspects of war comics that you'd like, whatever, if it's a tidbit or a fancy that you have. I don't think we've ever done a war comic show. So a couple of years in, we're finally getting around to it, and let's go ahead and pack it all in one night, not come back to it for another few years. So hit it, DS.
Yeah, so war comics for me, I'll break it down. I'm a Golden Age collector, obviously. So for me, there's two categories of war comics in the Golden Age. One is World War II comics, and one is, I call them Atom Age comics. It's more of the Korean War era stuff, the Cold War type stuff, a lot of anti-communist stuff, Korean War themes. The most popular and highest in demand is the World War II stuff, and among that, everybody knows the timelies, the Captain America comics, the Marvel Mystery comics, Human Torch, the All Winners, stuff like that. I'm really not into the World War II comics, and I'm not really sure why. As I like Alex Schomburg, it's quality stuff. The interior splash pages on all the timelies are often better than even the covers. It's phenomenal artwork and good stories. Very patriotic, very action-packed, really cool villains. It's good stuff. I don't know. I gravitate more and only towards the Atom Age, Golden Age war stuff, mostly the Atlas stuff. And I'm not sure why. It's the art on the front is sort of grittier. There's not. I don't want to. This is going to come out wrong, but the timely World War II stuff has a more unrealistic sort of cartoony style, which I really dig in comics. There's a cartoony style across all comics of all eras. But I find that Atom Age stuff like this to just be grittier. It's just, I don't know, it's rougher and it's grittier, and I really dig it. And I really only got into this, the first one of these I ever bought was January of 2019. So it's officially only a year since I've been into these.
Wow.
And so even over that short period of a year where I was just, what I suggest to people is don't spend a lot of money if you're going to new area comics. Pick up some stuff affordably, a variety of stuff, and experience a lot of it for as cheap as possible, and then find out what you really like, and then sort of concentrate on that and up your budget, and you can buy sort of bigger books in what you really like, as opposed to spending it early on when you're not really sure. I'm at the point now where I really know what I like. I buy less, but what I buy for my collection is higher quality of what I like. And it's really weird, this Atom Age stuff that I'm in, it's still sort of an undeveloped genre. There's not a lot of consensus always as to what's a top book, what's a great book. There are some stuff it's really exploded in popularity over the last year. And what's really come to the forefront of the Atom Age war stuff is Russ Heath. Russ Heath covers have risen to the top, no doubt. That's the number one, the Russ Heath. But beyond the Russ Heath, it's sort of, there's no consensus on what's great, what's the super, what's high dollar, what's not, what's the price of this stuff. Flamethrower covers are very popular, and Russ Heath covers are very popular. And other than that, it's sort of still a wide open genre without a lot of definition. Really fun and exciting part of the hobby to be into. and still very affordable. Now prices have gone up on some of the more in-demand stuff, and even then, the highest priced ones go into maybe between $1,000 and $2,000, which for Golden Age to be at the top of the genre is cheap. But there's still stuff out there for 20, 30, 40, $50. Quality stuff. I picked this one up for $50, I think. Highest graded copy. I bought it raw, but it's the highest graded on the census. I think it might be the only one on the census. Yeah, there's not a lot on the census either of these. So yeah, that's another thing. Got to be careful going out and buying a 5.0 highest graded. It might just be the highest graded because it's the only graded and nobody sent them in yet. But more and more are getting sent in and coming back 7, 8, 9. So yeah, anyway, this is a real cool one I got for cheap, and I have it listed for sale, but I'm not in a hurry to sell it because I really like it. It's a really, really nice copy, and the layout on this is really cool. I don't know, the design of this is one of the best on any comic I've seen. It's got the hill and the action down here like in a triangle sort of pyramid shape, and it's just like everything lines up with that perfectly. This guy's lined up with that diagonal, this guy's lined up with that diagonal, and you got this shooting going across the top through the helmet. And then you got the bayonet coming across the other side, and you got this dark red fade down to yellow. When you hear me talk about it, some of you are like, yeah, I see that, DS. It really is designed well. And you might just scroll through this on eBay and not give it a second thought. But when you get something like this in hand and you really take a look at it, this stuff knocks your socks off. It really is good stuff. So yeah, I really like this one. Maybe I'll pull it down for sale now. I think I've talked myself into keeping it.
Well, I get accused all the time of my channel, and I'm sure you guys hear this too on your comments and things on your channels, but that I infect people with my passion for certain books. And every now and then actually quite often, people will contact me and say, hey, I bought that book because of you. I didn't even think twice about it until you showed it. But I think this might be the first time that someone has talked themselves into keeping a book. So that's a whole nother level, man. I'm proud of you.
Wow. Yeah, I did it with another book I'll show here if I get to it. I don't have a ton of war books anymore, but I've got my entire war PC is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 10 books in my war PC, and then some others that I own which are for sale, but it's may or may not sell, and I'm cool. So yeah, I have a very small war collection, but I'm really proud of them. I got one I talked myself into selling and keeping, and I did pull it down. And I'll show that one here in a minute.
Yeah. Go pull that out of the bubble mailer you had that halfway stuck in and show it to us when you get a chance. Roger, what do you got showing us here? Oh, that's beautiful. I love that yellow background on the last book, but I got to say the red for a war color cover is really something.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with DS wholeheartedly, by the way. Again, this is another Korean era, 1955, I want to say. And it's a Saul Brodsky cover, which he did he did a lot of interiors. He didn't do a lot of covers that I recall. But this was actually an AOK from the great Man Cave Comics himself. Actually, this is 52. I'm sorry, 52. Okay. And I wanted to talk about. I have several Heath and comics, which I have unfortunately in a bin, which is way down there. But I've always been fascinated by the rationales of the genre of the war comic, because way back when these were like pariahs. Nobody wanted these things, right?
I mean, a lot like romance, and that's kind of turning our corner now too.
That's right.
When is Western? That's the last frontier, I feel like.
Yeah, that's right. I remember this. I remember when I was working at the shop back in the 80s, and this guy brought in a huge collection of war comics. I think they gave him like $1 each. I mean, from the 40s and 50s, and he was like, God, is that everything? Is that all the best you can do? And he took it, because nobody, it just was not, they languished in back issue bins, et cetera, unless you price them really cheap. But, I find them very fascinating because it's a very, to me, a restricted topic, but the way that the action unfolds and the propaganda behind it and how kids would would look at this, and then they would, their parents would be kind of in tune with that, and they would buy war bonds and they would advertise that during World War II, for example, or they would want to rally support of other, more unpopular wars like the Indochina wars, etc. So I find this topic very fascinating when you look deeper into why these comics even exist as a genre.
Yeah, and in the after World War II, as pretty much everybody in the hobby, especially our viewers, are very educated. If you just randomly go to a comic shop and talk to a stranger, they might not be up on it. But the YouTube community and the Instagram community, very knowledgeable. And after World War II, everybody knows there was sort of like, with a lot of these publishers, they didn't know what to do because they were so invested in World War II stuff for a long time that they really didn't know what to do with it. And that's most evident when you look at like the DC stuff, the Batman and the Superman stuff. It's like they don't know what they're doing. And likewise with Timely, they didn't really know what they were doing either. And 5 years or so went by until they started to try new things. And there was some war, some Western, some romance and stuff. But they really found that war was a popular category anyway, and they sort of changed the style over. I think that little gap helped because it's a total break from the style of the World War II stuff. And I think that little break in between allowed for a nice change into a completely new type of war comic, around 1950, 51, up through 54. And you see that with horror comics coming into their own in the 50s as well. And then ultimately, halfway through the 50s, you get the superheroes blossoming, and that turns into the most popular comic movement ever. But yeah, that 5-year break between World War II and like 1950 was sort of a lull in the comics for publishers where they were trying to figure out what to do. And I think that helped because when they finally came around to putting out stuff like horror and war and, the romance stuff too, it really, really blossomed into super cool stuff.
Yeah, agreed totally.
Really good stuff.
Yeah, you need that break because if you just have a continuity going directly from 45 to 46 to 47, just keep going, it's tough to make a change sometimes without a clean break. And when you take a break from something and come back to it, even if you're writing a paper and you take a break and come back to it the next day, you will see it from a different perspective. Sometimes you need a break to bring on the best inspiration, and that's what I think happened with comics.
Let me tell you something. Every paper I wrote in college was started 4 hours before it was due. So I don't know what you mean about taking a break and coming back. I sat there with a piss bottle. So
yeah, I hear people who are not like you and me, Bub, that say that, but I don't know. I did the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what I hear. I hear that great writers sometimes take a break and come back, and it's different. I don't know.
Yeah, look at the results of that technique there for Bub. Okay.
I'm making money $5 a time on Monday or sometimes every other Monday night. That's
but what DS was saying is really exemplified when you look at Atlas back then, Marvel, where they were they were just going like a house afire. And then after World War II kind of ended, they were kind of in limbo. They weren't sure what to do. They canceled a lot of, the big three, Submariner, Human Torch, and Captain America. And they brought them back in the Cold War era for a brief period of time. But yeah, it's like DS said, they didn't really, the Atlas had to sort of transform itself. And that's why the Korean and the Indochina War comics were really popular, because now it wasn't, they had a whole nother substance, a whole nother rationale behind them. It wasn't World War II. Now we're talking about, communists. We're talking about imperialism, things like that. So it was interesting that they had that kind of change, but as you know, comics, they change with the times. They mirror the culture, and I think that is what helped them sort of get through those lean years, even through where the comics code came in.
Yeah, and let me say another thing about the sort of the difference between World War II comics and the Atom Age comics. After World War II, really the atrocities that were committed by Germany and just the general, just gruesome nature of war overall, it really wasn't, especially some of the stuff in the Pacific Theater and, some of the stuff, the campaign that Japan carried out on the mainland of China and Burma and Indochina and all that, a lot of that didn't become publicly known to American citizens until after the war, when we really were able to go into these places and see what happened. And that it was a very dark period of time. And the images then with the photography and the video and that coming out, it gave a really gruesome, dark look at war that it was shocking to a lot of people. And I think that incorporates in some of the shocking elements in the Atom Age War, because you don't see stuff like people burning alive and bayonets through the chest in World War II comics. That's why I say they're sort of more cartoony. I mean, there's a lot of, there's Hitler, and even a lot of Hitler covers where he's being picked up, by the back of his belt and held up by a superhero. I mean, they're sort of cartoony, but then you get stuff where guys are getting shot in the head and burning alive. That's like the norm for Atom Age War, and that was the exception in the World War II comics. There is some of that, but it was sort of the exception. I think a lot of the knowledge that we got after World War II was done helped influence, and a lot of those guys served over there and came back and worked in comics. And I think that had a big influence on the Atom Age. It's grittier, it's darker, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has much more of a horror theme to it, and really borrows some from the crime books, I think, as well.
Yeah,
how visceral the action is. It's really quite something. Look at Bill, Comic Mag Musings. Let's see, what are we up to? We're talking. Where are we? Yeah, I think that's good enough. Let's see, he gets a double shot. So let's do the. Oh, right, I got to move. Actually, with the new StreamYard, I think I can leave the comment up there. What do you guys think?
Cool.
Are we worlds colliding, or I think we're good.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, and then we'll throw one more up there for this fine gentleman. How about the carpool? There you go. Congratulations. Everyone's working hard to help Bill out.
Yeah, so this is a Russ Heath. This is the one I've decided to pull. I bought this. This sold on a YouTube auction from one guy to another guy for a price that was, I thought, great for me, because I loved this book when I saw it. And so I had just missed it when I tuned into the auction. So I hit up the guy I bought it, and I rebought it off of him, and I gave him a profit. And it came with a lot of books. I told him, keep the rest. Just let me buy that one off you, and I'll give you what you paid for the whole lot, essentially. So he was cool. He got a bunch of free books, and I got this one. And it's a Russ Heath flamethrower cover. It doesn't have what's on the other end of the flamethrower, but the colors and just the shadowing in this, which Russ Heath is known for his shadowing. It adds such a noir quality to his art. Yeah, I listed this for sale because I felt like, and here's the deal, I listed this for a high price because I was so blown away by how awesome it was, and it didn't sell. And I was like, well, that's why I listed it so high, because I think it's so awesome, and I think I'm going to keep it. So I just pulled it down, and now I'm keeping it. But this was up for sale for a minute, and then, well, for a little while, and then I pulled it down. I am keeping it. I really do love this book.
Well, we thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for sharing all those books. And you can go over to your friends over at the CBSI channel or NCIS comic books at NCIS North Carolina or wherever they're at, and share some of that great knowledge on how to overprice a book on eBay and then take it down and mark it as sold.
Yeah.
I think they're interested in stuff like that.
Well, I haven't got an email from them yet, so I'm going to stick around. I'll show you a couple more while it's still here for now. I'll show you a recent pickup that I put on my Instagram, but I don't think I've shown on YouTube. So this will be a YouTube premiere for this book.
Ooh.
First time ever on YouTube, I think. Another Russ Heath. This one, I thought I was the only one that liked it, and then I saw one in auction, and I got outbid, and I was like, wow, okay, apparently other people do like it. Navy Action 2. This one needs a closer look. It is just so cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's not your typical comic book, even the Atom Age, and there's not a lot of Navy-related titles. It's mostly Marines and infantry and stuff.
Is that well?
This is Russ Heath, yeah. And Navy Action only had 4 issues. This is issue number 2, 1954. And it's 6.5 off-white, so pretty high grade on this. And it's the colors and the shadowing and the action of the bullets. Yeah. The bullets in the water hitting next to the guy, and the wave, and the bow of the ship there.
Yeah, that's fabulous. The water, the way that it's drawn there is just so. It's like you can see there was a wake, and then their men are sort of making their way through it. It's
right,
amazing.
And then you got the bullets over here in the water. I really like that effect.
Yeah.
A lot of action. You can almost hear this cover when you look at it. You can almost hear with like explosions in the air and the anti-aircraft fire going off from the ship. And I would assume that is, I don't know, it's kind of small. Maybe it's probably a destroyer, I guess. I don't know. But, and there's the ships in the background, which are cool because he just gave them a sort of an effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool touch to that. Like it's just darkened out, but it like sort of dotted with white dots to make it cool. And you can see the anti-aircraft plumes of smoke in the air all over. And then there's another ship way back here.
Yeah, I don't think normally that a destroyer would get that close. That's a troop carrier, it'd have to be, right? Because it wouldn't get that close.
That's amazing.
It's kind of weird. I mean, I'm not an expert in World War II or Atom Age type.
Yeah, me either. But it looks like
it's got them streaming off the side. I'm not sure. It's kind of a weird troop. It's not a troop carrier like I've seen. I don't know. I'm not a military expert, but
yeah, me
either.
I thought those were two different boats. Aren't those two different boats next to each other?
Well, it's one boat.
There's like a transport boat next to it, right? Where
they're like coming down the steps.
Isn't that a separate boat?
No, I think it's connected to that one. It's like they're coming around the side and coming down the steps.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I've never seen that kind of ship before, that with a side carrier like that. That's interesting.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's one vessel.
Is this book sold?
What do you mean? Is it sold?
Is it in your PC or is it already sold?
No, it's a PC.
Oh, nice.
PC. I have two types of books that are for sale and books that are not for sale yet. Which is not for sale yet.
Bill, doesn't somebody have a wrench?
Somebody hit me up about this though. Somebody hit me up about this and was like, "Hey, I really like that. Would you sell it?" And I'm like, "Well, not really, but I mean, I'll take offers on anything." He's like, "Well, what do you want for it?" And so I threw out a price and never heard back from him. So which is fine by me. I was not in a hurry to sell that.
Sticker shock. The guy's probably still in traction.
There's another Russ Heath. Let me show you another one. I don't know when this email's coming. I haven't got it yet. So this is Battlefield 2. I picked this up raw, and a really grim Russ Heath cover here. The most grim part, it's these two guys are about to meet coming around the corner of this wall.
Oh yeah, both bayonets too. They're probably both out of ammo.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. And then down here, there's this hand coming out of the rubble. That's pretty gruesome.
Oh wow.
And you see this explosion in the background, which is pretty well drawn. Actually, there's a lot of detail in that sort of explosion with those guys running there, and just the dark blue sky. You can see it's sort of like dusk. And really, this is almost like this makes me feel like I'm looking at a crime cover. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's a heavy crime and horror influence on the war books of this time. And you go back a little further and it's just not there. But it really is a heavy crime, just the visceral nature of it. It's amazing.
Definitely it's a lot darker themed than in the 60s, where they were more looking at the personal horrors of war and the effects and all that. Here, it's just the raw, horror of the actual conflict that they try to bring out in the covers and in the comics as well.
Fantastic. What do you got showing up there, Roger?
Well, because DS was talking about how the Golden Age would sometimes make light, or not make light, maybe that's not the right word, but sort of, try to make it a little more palatable. So because kids would be buying this and they didn't want a lot of parents didn't want their kids to be reading stuff which was super ultra violent. So they would sort of poke fun at things like Hitler, and here he's like, either, I don't know if he's pulling his mustache or flicking his nose. Let's see. Are you doink my mustache? Yeah. So he's pulling his mustache. So this is the kind of whimsical kind of cover that you would see a lot. And I think DS was sort of talking in a different vein, because a lot of the covers that that Atlas Marvel did were kind of just over the top kind of stuff that would never happen. Like this beautiful woman in an Iron Maiden with this caricature throwing fire at her or something.
Right.
But, yeah, it's just over the top stuff, which obviously nobody would believe would actually occur per se. But this is sort of like just to lighten it up. But still, if you had like Hitler or Mussolini or Tao or somebody like that on the cover, it would sell because it had like a infamous quality to it. So you did see a lot of these kind of more. Obviously they're very stereotypical. If you see the one with Mao Zedong and all that stuff, it's very, very. I don't know how to say it except that it's very racist, right? But and here you can see that this Oriental figure has more of a yellow hue on the face, et cetera, et cetera. So that was sort of part of the way that comics were back then. Very few really related to different races and put them in the same light, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I just put this up there just to see that this was part of history. Not that we agree with it. It's just the way it was, right?
Well, it's almost more important to remember the dark parts of history because those are the things you have to learn the most from. And two things about the World War II stuff. I feel like the racial stereotypes and language in the World War II ones was so much stronger. That's an element that's prevalent in World War II comics. And then also the Schomburg stuff. One of the differences is the colors used. In a lot of the Schomburg stuff, he'll have bright yellow planes and bright red ships and bright blue guns. Like he'll have like a red Tommy gun, a bright red Tommy gun that somebody's holding. The unrealistic colors, but it really grabs you on the cover. And then you have the muted colors of the Atom Age stuff where it's much more realistic. Like the only red on this cover is in the words on the bottom and outlining the title. It's just green and blue and like whites and grays. It's not a very striking cover color-wise, but it works so well because it's so evocative. I mean, it's another Russ Heath cover, and this is my favorite one in my collection right here, Battlefront 26. This is my favorite, and just there's no action on it. It's just the caravan of guys with the minesweeper in front and the snow going through, and it's very evocative. And I really like the evocative Atom Age war covers. They have a very strong feel to them, and they're not necessarily colorful or action-packed all the time, but they're like great works of art. And Heath is at the top of the list again. All I'm showing is Heath, and this is why. I mean, this one, it's just. There's not much to it, but it's just such an evocative cover. It really has great feeling.
Well, it really shows that war was not something to be glorified. It puts it in a context. That these gentlemen were out. Some of these guys were teenagers, who were out there fighting for our country and scared, to no end, and yet they did it. They still did it. Because they had that kind of allegiance to our country, and he shows that war is not something to be glorified, but he puts it in the correct light, or unless there are exceptions to that rule. But certainly in the Atlas era and that Atom Age era, Heath was just a master at it. Like you said, putting the evocative cover, not just trying to sell a cover, but putting it as so that you got a good semblance of what war was like.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hop off here and go join the other show and try to spread some love over there. And we'll do this topic again sometime because I don't have a ton of books, but I've shown 5, and I love talking war comics. Even though I'm sort of a one-sided war collector, I don't have any timelies at all. It's just kind of weird to be a war collector and go look at timely stuff. So.
Well, work on that.
I'll catch you. I'll watch the rest of the replay, and I will talk to you guys later on.
All right. Thanks, DS. Have a good time.
All right. See you later.
Who was that guy?
Yeah, I found it strange you just put some random guy on here.
Yeah, I gotta stop putting the link in the chat. I tell you one thing that I want to talk about were the machinery and the idea. My favorite war books are more about planes. Really, I just really like planes. But every now and then you get a good tank cover. Like he was focusing on kind of a troop carrier or something like that. Whatever the naval one, you don't see too many Navy ones really.
No.
But I just love. Here's a nice LB Cole. You can tell by the black smoke, right? But he's just shooting the zeros, and it just looks amazing. The angle of it, it's all like upside down and crooked, and just everything is so strong looking. It's fantastic. And for me, a lover of space comics, and I always like the apparatus used in all the scientific stuff and the sci-fi stuff. Mm-hmm. And so my favorite war things are things of that nature, the ones that focus on the machinery. And, at that time, it's not like kids or even your average adult had any access to this type of material. You weren't walking around looking at these planes. You saw them in newsreels, you saw them before maybe. There wasn't a whole lot of everyday stuff.
Yeah. You saw them in comics, and you saw them in toys maybe, and in newsreels, and that's probably
right.
And maybe in the newspaper here and there, but that's about it.
Yeah, but you certainly didn't see them around the block.
No.
These were still, to some people, I'm sure, parts of fantasy, and things that were coming to life, new in the age. I think that's pretty awesome. So a lot of the books that I pick up focus on that, and I got this one here. Here's a Bob Lubbers Wings comic.
Oh yeah, Wings.
I love the Sky Hag stuff, and they're flying. You could tell it's Oriental down there, and just fun stuff. Really enjoy those. And then the Jeeps, and look at this plane too. You see how such a striking difference between, say, and this one's a Lubbers cover as well. See how hard he puts the lines, Cole puts the lines in here, where it really looks like a solid item in flight. And then you have Bob Lubbers' take. Look at how that is curved and showing a lot of movement. The truck is kind of, even though it's been blown up, you can tell it has almost where the hard lines would be. It has soft lines to show that it's pliable. I think the artistic abilities of these guys to really be able to show all these machines like as if they were living, it's just really cool. So that's one of the things that I like about war comics. And really, I don't have a big collection because I don't collect many of the human-centered issues, if you will. So like the stuff, Russ Heath, the master of 17 shadows on the same person. Yep. This is fantastic. Yep. But I don't have too much of that because I kind of focus on the industrial part, which I enjoy. So that's kind of where I'm at on war books. Is that a Howling Commandos? Man, I love that.
Yeah, that's Sergeant Fury and the Howling
Commandos. Really
Commandos.
like some of those.
Yeah, Dick, and again, these, I picked these up for like $1 or something. I mean, they were just obscenely cheap, and I was like, I can't leave them there for that price, and I wasn't the hugest Sergeant Fury fan or anything like that, but when you look back at comics and the Silver Age here and how they're portraying World War II, again, it's such a huge difference. It was written by, I think this was written by, was Lee writing at this point, or was this Lieber?
Was Lieber writing or drawing?
He did both. Okay, it is Lee. Lee and Dick Ayers was I know Dick Ayers did the arts, but it was done. This particular title was done. It's so different from what we were talking about, right? It does have grittiness behind it, but it had a lot of it really had a lot of good versus evil kind of vibe to it, Yeah. And it had a lot of teamwork, and it had more positivity than those Cold War era and Atom Age comics. But I enjoy them. I enjoy them to this day. Ayers, I think, is very underrated. You got these monochrome kind of covers that he did here and there. You got a little swastika over here. Again, here, this is nice because you can see them, and you can tell that there's been a huge battle here, and they're just exhausted.
Yeah, so barely moving.
Yeah, exactly. Barely moving. Yeah. So, it did have times where, things were not just, action packed. Sometimes it was the results. And sometimes it was, not positive. Here's more of what you would expect here, just action everywhere, guns blazing, enemies coming out of everywhere, foreground and background. Just cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't have like a huge amount of war comics just because I sort of focus more on the superheroes and the martial arts stuff. But every time I see them, and I'm more impressed by them. And again, I like to go behind the scenes, the reasons behind these comics, right? And I'm just fascinated by that it's a genre, I mean, it's something. It's like a Western. I've been fascinated with those. Are another genre which is picking up now, Bob.
Oh yeah. See now, Brett Bottomley is making a good point here about Sergeant Fury, and I think one of the things, and that now I may be taking it to another place, but when I read his comment, one of the things that I think of is that he, when you have Sergeant Fury, it was an ongoing character traveling forward through, and really batch of characters, right? Yeah. Traveling forward through the series. Whereas, the books that DS was showing and that I've shown in some cases are more, although these were more like serials, the ones that I was showing are more like serials, but DS's are definitely more like anthologies. And I think an anthology war title, that's like saying that Swamp Thing is a horror comic for people who don't like horror comics, and that's kind of the same idea. The idea that you're pulling it back out of the genre a little bit, and you're going back into a character-driven story, and that lends itself to superheroes or anything like that. And I think that's where it takes you back in, Yep. So a lot of people don't really like anthology books, and they much would prefer, as a character they can follow and kind of get into the mental side of it. So that's kind of where I take it.
Yeah, and that's a good point right there, the mental side of it, because when you read them, it's hard to get into the mental side to any kind of specificity with an anthology or even a serialized
comic.
Is. Right. But when you're talking about something that's character driven, that lends itself to a lot more in-depth characterization, and you can and expands the 3 dimensions of the character. And that's what Stan Lee definitely did with Fury and his Commandos. They each had distinct personalities and they had different talents and skills and so forth. And some of them were, had some reservations about what they were doing, and others were more gung ho. So yeah, I get that, and that's why that particular title, I think, it sort of shows you that there's an evolution. If you look from all the way back from the 40s to the 50s, how that each decade, in a sense, had a very different focus on war. Whether and I guess part of it is because they changed the format, like you said, between anthologies and more of a plot or character driven, but also because the times changed. In the 60s now we're getting out of we're getting into another conflict in Indochina, and so when you reflect back to World War II, they wrote it, but with the 60s kind of vibe, very, very different than the golden age World War II.
Yeah, which Korea had a lot too. At this time, you got people who have the strongest memories. A lot of them were of Korea, and that was a lot of very different type of warfare from World War I and II. And different type of people fighting in them too. So,
Oh yeah. Essentially, you were trying. Well, I'm not going to get into all the rationales behind it, but in Korea, you were defending essentially just a line, and the other ones it was guerrilla warfare, in Vietnam, which is very different than in Korea, which were more confrontational and strategic, troop. Placement, guerrilla warfare, you didn't know where the enemy was, or who they were. So
it reminds me, but you have that Sergeant Rock cover where they're kind of coming all out of the trees, and that's the kind of warfare you're looking at in Vietnam. So
yeah, exactly.
Look at this one here. I got a for your invaders. I'll show an invaders.
Yeah,
them they're king size annual.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that I like about this one is that it's a blend between the two styles. So of course you have all the Schomburg madness, right?
Yeah.
But you also have lots of bright colors, and the appearance of the Human Torch always makes you suspend some disbelief, right?
You think so?
But then look at the floor. Why is the floor yellow?
Yellow. Well, isn't it the Brandenburg Gate, or where is this?
I do not know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I forgot the story behind here. So this might be some kind of more like a mall or something, like some kind of attraction,
Yeah, it may be, or they just wanted more color.
Yeah. I like you. I really, this is Schomburg, coming out after he hadn't done covers in a decade or so before this. So obviously this is like a lot of for us, who grew up in the 70s, our only exposure to him. So I really enjoy this.
Very fine. What else you got there, buddy?
Well, I wanted to show just a couple more. Again, sometimes we talk about the genre and the era, and sometimes people do things which are just a little bit nutty, right?
Good gracious.
And that's what this is here.
Is he giant sized or something? Or
no, he's not. But again, the stereotypes here are evident, right? You have the Orientals, who are much smaller and have a much different pigment to their skin, and then you have this Green Beret, which actually he's a kid who turns into a Green Beret, and he's actually he's kicking this guy or something. He cracked his neck right there.
Good grief.
So again, this is from the 60s though. So again, sometimes some companies, they sort of were throwbacks, and this is only a 2-issue series, but the same thing here, same thing occurs here. Here you have
so big compared to everybody else.
Yeah. They and that's purposeful, that's purposeful. That's, dominance and superiority in the whole bit. And that's sort of like the undercurrent here. And here you have the prisoners, and he's swooping in. You got this guy by the neck. Somehow he's on a vine, and he's hitting these two guys right in the mouth with a big boot there. Anyway, I enjoy these kind of quirky things, because they're just so out there,
Absolutely. Oh, that's pretty good. Now, the title of it is actually perplexing. Like the actual title art, it's amazing how simple they were able to keep that.
Yeah,
even just those 2 issues, it's just words.
Words. There's no camouflage.
No sensation to it at all.
No bayonet for any of the letters or anything. No.
Wow, look at that. That cover has everything I would like. It's just all in the wrong places. It's like a paint by numbers of something I should really like, and yet somehow it doesn't connect for me. What you like that book a whole lot there, Roger?
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, Brett Bottomley says that's the Arch in Paris. So yeah, it is part of the area where the Eiffel Tower is and all that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Collecting Chaos. Again, he didn't give me this one. I got this one myself, but I told him I would show some of his X comics. But this is an interesting title, Bub. If you've ever read one of these, this is rough stuff. There's a lot of this kind of superiority over women and putting women in compromising positions of meekness and so forth. And and torture and just all kinds of really weird stuff going on in the Atlas War title. This is the one shot, and then you have Sergeant Stryker's Death Squad.
What's he reaching for there? A bomb or?
What was that?
What's he reaching for?
Grenade.
Oh, okay.
Grenade.
He's gonna pick it up and toss it back.
Yeah, he's trying, and this guy here. See, notice how the rough stuff here. This guy's about to be run over by this tank.
Good grief!
And you see some guys being torn apart back here by an explosion. And again, these comics were, compared to Sergeant Fury, kind of on the violent side. At least I thought so. Maybe somebody else has an opinion of them. These were kind of, the whole Atlas line was kind of a jab to Marvel Comics. Goodman wanted to get back at Lee, but I really enjoyed these comics though. These Atlas Seaboard comics. They're just they're just like think of it as the rebel, trying to take down the giant.
Yeah, that's just it, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, just up against the wall. It didn't matter what they did. They're just hoping something would stick.
Yeah, that's why they tried so many different titles and genres, from barbarians to monsters to war to superhero to westerns. Just like you said, threw everything against the wall and see what would stick. But really, for a Bronze Age fan like myself, these are just must gets.
Yeah. Some more yellow floor there.
More yellow floor, but yeah, this is, who did this cover? Was this? I'm not sure who did this cover. The style doesn't look particularly distinctive to me, but but again the red, notice just like the 50s, right? The red background,
the
yellow floor, and the action, the two different distinct factions fighting here. Cool stuff, just cool stuff. Not groundbreaking per se, just cool,
Yeah, solid work.
solid work. Yeah, solid work. Exactly.
That's cool, man. I enjoy that. It's nice. One of the reasons I wanted to do this topic was because I don't see, there's, like you said, there's becoming something of a resurgence in war titles for sure. Westerns are starting to pick up. Romance is starting to pick up real hard, which is shocking.
Yes.
And really the only thing left is really, not all. I say Western's probably lagging the furthest behind. Yeah. And I would have thought that would have picked up faster than Romance. But I think Romance is beating out Westerns right now, and Western's probably the last bastion of of unturned and unprofited comics out there.
Yeah. I think still Funny Animals are still, nobody's really too much into those.
Well, I think when there's certain things about comics in general that I think people like to stay away from. And the Funny Animal books really, even though the subject matter, if you ever look into those, are more mature than you would probably expect.
Yes.
But when you really look at them just in a cursory way, they truly embody what a children's comic would be. Yeah. And so I think that a lot of collectors, if you will, just kind of look past that. But I mean, it's also easy to forget that Funny Animal books were top-selling Golden Age books. I mean, they outsold all this other stuff. We want to talk Action Comics. You know how poorly selling those books were? I mean, it's not even close compared to Funny Animal books. Yeah. It leaves everybody in the dust.
Yeah.
So there was a time when it truly was, the comic. But I think the reason for that is because children were buying them and they were being bought for children.
Correct.
So,
correct.
I think that's what holds Funny Animals back in another section,
Right.
And certainly the romance books are for young adults, if not adults, Yeah. They're very, tongue-in-cheek scandalous, right?
Right. Yeah, I remember the only ones I remember ever. I had a cousin who was 5 years older than I was, and she loved the romance comics. She had them from even the 60s, and but at that point, she was already in her yeah, she was like in her late teens. So yeah, I guess that makes sense that she would be into those. You know, she was into the novels and things like that too. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot like Archie's. The question mark. Brett Bottomley saying Archie's. Well, as you know, those are pretty hot. Those older ones. I mean, and especially if there's any kind of double entendre or controversy at all,
or a recently assumed one. You know, it's not even stuff that I feel were really meant at the time. But almost anything can be perverted. So, you know, so I think sometimes people go the extra mile to make it so, and then it increases the value of a book because it's seen as a novelty. Yeah. But you know, I still, you know, the Archies. You know, you're showing a Charlton book up there. I'm surprised you have the gumption to even handle that book.
Yeah.
Those things start off on no staples to begin. They come out of the factory no staples. So.
I tell you, man, these things are Charlton's. I've always had like an affinity for them, sort of like you have an affinity for that goofy uncle, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're just so out there, you know, just the page quality, the paper quality, the story quality. A lot of times were just bad, you know. But I've come to you know, it's sort of like bad in a good way at this point, you know. Just it's so out there that you're like, oh, you know, this is cool. And again, most of these were, like you were saying, the anthology types. They did have a few characters that sort of would recur. But
yeah, serials. I mean, you're not getting a coherent storyline out of any of that.
Yeah. They had like Corporal Schultz or something, like, you know, a couple of people like that. I don't know if they were trying to mimic Marvel in that or whatever, but I don't remember any of those stories, so it couldn't have been very compelling. You know what I mean? But right. I still enjoy it.
Look, Jay Hood is trying to say his goofy uncle gave him comics as if he's not the goofy uncle now. We're not believing you there, brother.
Yeah, I've given comics to my nephew, so it all comes around. Oh, you grew up 5 miles from Charlton. Okay, that was in Connecticut, right? Derby, Connecticut, was it? That's cool.
That's nice.
Cool.
I'd be driving around there just picking up old staples. I'd get back there with a metal detector.
And then we have other types of war that we haven't talked about here, Bub, like this here.
Well, now don't start with that. if that's a war book, then we're really we'll be here for 4 hours.
What do we see here, Bub?
I don't want to hear it. You're gonna get in trouble, Roger.
We see soldiers behind a battery here, and they're holding a line here against these tripod Martians. The war doesn't have to be between the same species.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Goodness. All right. And with that, I think we'll end it. But I do want to say there were some interesting comments in the chat tonight, none of which came from Comic Mag Musings. However, I do think that when we do this again, if Bill would be so kind as to join us the next time, he's got quite a nice war collection. So the next time we do, has Bill ever been on the No Faces chat? I don't know.
Bill? Yeah, I think he's been on once, hasn't he?
I can't remember if he's been on once. Well,
I've had him on a show several times, so I might be confusing, you know, him with on one of my.
Yeah, he's been on some of my other programs, but I don't think he's been on this one. If he has, we're willing to forget and repeat that mistake, and if he hasn't, we're willing to correct our better judgment. So we'll have him next time he's available to come on. Since DS wants to do this topic again, we'll revisit some war books here soon. Just as soon as I look at him. He's been told, I've been told I'm too handsome for a No Faces chat. Well, I'm sure that's the excuse we've been giving you all this time.
Yeah. I hope that's not a cop-out. Okay? Because I'm buying it if that's a cop-out. I want him on here so we can grill him like we have every other guest that we've had.
That sounds like a plan. Maybe we'll have the return of the Why No Faces chat. The what was it? The pause. Maybe he'll a return of that. He's on the pause drug. That sounds like a prime candidate right there.
Oh, you know it. He's got 3 videos a week for probably a year. So you've got fertile ground there to choose from.
I thought you were going to say for no good reason, but I'm still with you. Yeah. All right, let's shut her down. Or actually, you know what? We can probably stay on for another, I don't know, hour or so. Or oh, wait a minute. I don't think we can. Who's this? Oh, I think that's who's that? Roger? You know this lady?
Yeah. Hi, Liz. How you doing?
I think she's fresh out of Girl Scout cookies. All right, she must be wanting something else, Roger. We better let you go so you can go park the poodle or whatever you do.
Yeah, I gotta park the dog. Yep. It's cold in here, Bub, but I still got to do it.
Absolutely. Yep. No shivering tales for you. Yeah.
I gotta do it.
Well, we appreciate everybody stopping by. DS would naturally tell you to do your homework. Roger will tell you whatever Roger says right now.
Be blessed and be back. Oh boy.
And I'll tell everybody to read a comic and don't apologize for the glare. We'll catch you next week and or next time on the No Faces Comic Chat. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.